At BMO Insurance, customer experience is a promise. A promise we back with clear, measurable service level agreements. In the last year, our teams supporting you have driven real results. Now, progress sets the pace. Smart app submissions reach underwriting within 1 day of submission, and 99% processed within our service level agreements. Policy settlement within 2 days, and claims completed within 10 days. We know time is valuable. That's why our new business team routinely answers phone calls within 1 minute and provides email responses within 24 hours. Because when SLAs deliver, your business accelerates. We've redefined what fast and reliable service looks like, empowering advisors with the tools to drive business forward. Service level agreements aren't just targets, they're a commitment to our advisors. And at BMO Insurance, we're raising the standard.
Welcome, Rohit, to LifeFWD. This is an exciting time. I'm so glad you could join us today for an interview with Rohit Thomas. So thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here, Greg, and I do want to commend your team on this webinar. We've had a lot of fantastic feedback and attendance, so congratulations to you and your team on this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. It's LifeFWD is a great new venture that we're excited to release to advisors on a quarterly, monthly basis. So this has been going fantastic. So today we're doing an interview style. So I'm going to be asking a bunch of questions. Super excited to get to know you better. I'm sure our advisors and MGAs are as well. So the first question I have for you is, how did your journey into the insurance industry begin? I think everyone's got a unique story into our business. And what are the experiences that ultimately led you to CEO?
Yeah, great question. So I would say growing up in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
No one does in high school.
And grade 12, a guidance counselor, knowing what I was good at, suggested actuarial science, which again, I had no idea what it was. I researched it and I thought, okay, this can build on my strengths on math, statistics, finance. And so applied to various universities, went into Waterloo, and I did the co-op program and did my first insurance co-op at Manulife and started my career there. And, you know, getting to this spot, I would say it really was about first building that technical expertise. Mm-hmm. Everyone starts off building off technical expertise and building a foundation as wide as you can. That was my goal. So as diverse experience as you can, diverse businesses from life to wealth to corporate. And then it was about solving challenges, solving problems. That's what I enjoyed doing and just had a great opportunity to solve different challenges, build different businesses. And it's been 3 years and it's been a fantastic journey at BMO Insurance.
Yeah. What would you say is your motivator to continue your journey and your climb to CEO? What motivates you?
So it is solving problems. It is solving challenges, building initiatives. And throughout my career, really proud of things we've built collectively at BMO and even other organizations. Mm-hmm. So that's really what motivates me versus sort of building a career is where can you solve problems? Where can you help people? Where can you help colleagues and build teams and see them succeed? And so building teams and seeing them succeed, building businesses, solving problems, solving challenges, that's what has motivated me. Mm-hmm. And I would say versus chasing positions, that sort of has helped me get to where I am.
Which one of those challenges kind of defines it that you can look back and go, those were some defining moments?
You know what? It's sometimes the challenging times that you go through. So I would say the financial crisis was a great learning. Mm-hmm. I was quite young in my career, but that was a great learning, especially where it was during that time,
Right.
navigating that situation. I stepped in to run a travel business during COVID, which to say was challenging
No doubt.
is
No doubt.
understating that. And it really thought about how to help clients, about empathy, because it was a difficult time for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say also key defining moments is where we made a stake in the ground and really launched something. So BMO's Whole Life that was launched in 2017, that was a big milestone
Mm-hmm.
for us and a pivotal moment that had spent a lot of time researching our launch into seg funds, in partnership with asset management and a true BMO initiative. And then we also, in 2015, we had dabbled in the pension risk transfer space. And there we said, we're going to be a true player here. And it was about people, process, technology. Right. We put that in place. And fast forward, different leaders have taken over and built that business. And we finished number 1 last year. So
congratulations. Fantastic.
Great accomplishment to the team. And so I'd say it's not only the building business, but it's also navigating challenges. Sometimes those are the best learning experiences on what to do and what not to do and how to navigate that.
You've had a lot of experience working inside the insurance industry, but also tied to a bank. With regards to the evolution of banking and insurance, what are the most important shifts shaping that market right now?
I would say even following COVID, client expectations have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And, clients are looking for a seamless experience. They're looking for relevance. They're looking for simplicity. So to me, we have to keep pace with client expectations, how they expect to be served. We're living in a space that is very data driven. So understanding our clients, understanding what they need before they do is very important. So I would say meeting customers where they are at,
Mm-hmm.
meeting their expectations and keeping pace. That is really, really important. And so now tying it back to the advisor, from an advisor's perspective, is how are they getting the right advice to clients in a seamless fashion and getting it efficiently, getting it understanding across their ecosystem of providers, products.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complicated space, and how they sort of translating that information to clients and meeting customers where they are at within their expectations. So, the pace of change is only continuing. We're now in an AI space. How are they leveraging AI to be more efficient to help customers through the insurance buying journey as well?
Right. Along those same lines, we often hear about the protection gap. It's increasing in Canada. From an industry standpoint, where's the gap most evident and what's driving it?
That's a great question, Greg. And, if you think 20 years ago, what has come down in price? You might say you could still buy a t-shirt for under $20. Digital storage, cost of insurance. Insurance has dropped 30%.
It's unbelievable when you say it that way, because I think most consumers don't think that.
With improving mortality, the cost of insurance has dropped 30% over the last 20 years. Now, salaries, cost of labor has gone up, technology costs have gone up, regulatory costs have gone up. And so you've naturally seen this movement. And when insurance costs, that also means compensation for that pure protection has come down. But the needs have not changed. So that's one element where just by the nature, you've had to sort of move up market, and that started to accentuate the protection gap. The second aspect of it is when you have a cost of a product coming down, how are you getting it at scale? In Canada, the direct-to-consumer space has not taken off, and we don't expect it to. I think Canadians value advice. It's less than 10%. And so we need to figure out how we get advice at scale. We believe in advice, but that inability has sort of accentuated the protection gap.
This feels like such a critical moment when we talk about the protection gap and, this critical moment in the industry to evolve because, this gap is widening, it feels like. What are the risks if we don't move fast enough?
Yeah. So Greg, one thing I'll tell you is we've seen situations where you see a death in in a close circle, and you see them having to do crowdfunding, GoFundMe. As an industry, when we see that, we're failed. Absolutely, that platform is great. The original crowdfunding was insurance, but we have failed to get the advice and the protection. So first and foremost, why we exist is to help Canadians. And if we see those situations, we have failed as an industry. That is the biggest risk. Now, when you sort of start to not address a need, it has to be addressed elsewhere. So how is that going to be? So there is a risk, one, that we don't meet our obligation as an industry, but then somebody else will address that need. So that's the second aspect. And so if we don't address this, somebody else will. Somebody will disrupt our market and address this gap. And there is a real gap. And that is a risk for our industry and advisors.
Right. We hear often more and more about design for real life. From an industry perspective, what does it actually mean in practice for advisors and their clients?
That's a great question. And design for real life. So let's start with the client. For clients, it really is about what we're selling. Is it simple? Do they understand it? Does it have optionality that meets what could happen in their life? Lives are complex. They're unpredictable. Do our products meet it? Certain restrictions, how many restrictions? Whatever it is, clients have to understand what they're getting. For advisors, it's about reducing friction. They're able to service the client. Think about if an advisor could just spend time educating a client, providing the advice versus all the friction that happens behind the scenes. Think about how you could scale that advice. For us, that is what design for real life is. And then as an industry, it's about having products that people know, they understand, it's simple to understand. It's, again, got the optionality and it's addressing a real need in the Canadian market.
Yeah, it's Canadians want simple, easy to understand products. And, that's what I'm taking from that is, design for real life is all about making it easy to understand. And when it's easy to understand, they buy the product, they understand the product, they keep it for a lifetime, which I think is so important.
And, we went through an exercise, Greg, recently where we're designing a new product. And the way we designed it was, again, what do Canadians really need? Versus trying to optimize this, what do we see in the data that they really need from this product? And that's how we designed it. It was what a real case driven by data. What do we know about clients? What do we know about Canadians? And that's how we went about it. It needs to be intuitive.
On that note, how is BMO Insurance thinking about its role in shaping where the industry is going based on that design for real life, particularly when it comes to innovation and supporting advisors?
So 2 years ago, we launched Rover, and we went from a fast follower to market leader. That was a stake in the ground where we said we're going to lead in innovation. And for us, it was about removing friction in the insurance buying process. And as we're building this, it is about how do we look at that ecosystem? How do we provide tools for advisors and clients to seamlessly buy insurance, be served by insurance, to get advice at scale? And that's the path we're going. And 2 years ago, we said Rover was just the beginning. So it was a field underwriting manual. We've now provided information on product, operations. Soon, Rover will help advisors with tasks. So it goes back to what I said. Imagine where the only thing an advisor has to spend time on is giving advice to a client. Everything else, that friction, that's noise, that delay, all of that is removed. That's the North Star we're going to, and that's where we're building. And we're not there. But that's where technology can be an enabler, but you still maintain the human. You still maintain the human, the advice, and the empathy, which is very important in our industry.
I think of my own experiences when I was selling insurance, when I was with clients, and I go back to, I still have very clear memories of 20 plus years ago at the kitchen table at it was 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and the client was asking a question, which I didn't know the answer to. And I always go back to Rover. Now I can go on to Rover. I can ask Rover that question, and it can give me instant access. I don't have to fumble through pages, PDF documents. I don't have to email my wholesaler. I can go directly to Rover, and it can give me that. And I always relate it back to the questions I got when I was at that kitchen table. So for me, it is such a game changer. Having instant access to Rover is so powerful. And I think it's just fantastic.
So that's a great comment on Rover. And we get a lot of questions as we grow. We grew 37% last year. Are we going to sacrifice our service levels, which are exceptional? Well, let me tell you this. Rover answered 10,000 questions. That's 10,000 touch points our teams did not have to address. So in fact, we grew 37%. Our service levels actually got better. Our wait times, our service times all improved, and we did not increase our size of our team. So that is the power of Rover and how it can help us scale, but still keep that human advice.
Similar note, I will never forget, hearing about all these questions we get for Rover. And, Rover's just like anything. It's going to have a lot of answers, but it's not going to have every answer. But those questions that it asked, we then can build upon, because then we understand what the advisor wants, because that's the questions they're asking, which I think is fantastic. And I don't think many people think about that when you have AI bot to answer those questions. We are learning so much at the same time based on the questions they're asking, which I think is fantastic. And it just continues that momentum to the next evolution of Rover.
Well, one of the characteristics of a high-performing team is you constantly collect feedback. And we're not perfect. And this is a great way where we're constantly listening to advice. And we now have a dedicated team that is just there to enhance Rover.
Yeah,
I'm on the feedback.
So excited for the future of Rover. It's going to be fantastic. What are you doing at an organizational level to ensure that high quality advisor experience is delivered consistently at scale?
For us, it really is about removing friction from the process. And so it is arming advisors with digital tools to allow them to have a seamless client experience, to deliver that advice seamlessly. And so we're making significant investments on our digital infrastructure. And where the advisor keeps the client at the front and center, we want to enable them. We want to support them with tools that, again, can support them, but does not remove the advice. We still believe in the value of advice, and how we enable advisors to deliver that is critical for us.
What are some of the real tangible changes advisors should expect to see in our industry to support them over the next few years?
So I think we're going to continue to see underwriting innovation. And from our perspective, we increased our accelerated underwriting limits. We're coming out of the point of sale. As we get more and more data, how do we sort of leverage that data to make informed decisions? Another significant investment we're doing is modernizing our platforms. Modernizing our platforms allows us to move faster, make changes quicker to our products, to our forms, to our platform, and really make data-informed decisions. What we want to do is always arm the advisor with insights. So again, going back to what I said, if we can arm the advisor with insights about their clients, what they need, think about that's what Rover should help with. But also what these platforms allow us to do is provide consistent experience. Technology, again, is to help us scale. So as we grow, as advisors grow, we can provide the same consistent experience. So that's what we're going for. And I think as an industry, that's where technology can help. It can scale. And that is what we're focused on, scaling it, just like Rover did, answering 10,000 questions that took 10,000 questions away from your team, from the underwriting team. That's where we're investing to help advisors.
On the flip side of that, what role do advisors play in helping close that protection gap? And how can they better position themselves in those conversations with clients?
I think the biggest space is advisors have to also embrace change, embrace technology. Technology helps make these experiences seamless. It again allows advisors to provide this advice at scale, make it more efficient, more accurate. Again, even when you think about paper versus digital. So it really is about, we're investing in the tools. Just like Rover, see the time savings that you can have. These tools are going to come out at a faster pace. How can AI help? Rover is AI. How can it help make your job easier? Have that learning mindset. Right now, across BMO Insurance, the number one behavior we're trying to is learning mindset, growth mindset. The pace of change is so fast, we have to be constantly educating ourselves. I'd say the same thing for our advisor community. The pace of change, especially from us, is going to be fast. These tools are there to help make your life easier. Take the time to learn. We're there to help learn. But I think this is how we can provide advice at scale.
I think as we move faster and faster, embracing change, enjoying it, living it, it's so exciting because it's going to move fast, like you said. And if you don't jump on, I always have this bullet train analogy. If you don't jump on the bullet train, you'll get left behind very quickly. And I think it's such an exciting time in our business because it is evolving, and so it's fantastic.
This is what we tell our staff, right? AI is not going to replace your job, but not knowing AI, you will be replaced.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we leverage the tools that are available.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. From your perspective, what does it really take for a carrier to earn long-term trust with advisors?
Consistent performance. And when things go wrong, one of our values is empathy. How we solve it is just as important. And so that's why we're very intentional in how we grow, where we invest, is that we can provide that consistent experience. And I've said this before, for us, where we're investing, we're a manufacturer. We manufacture products that's front and center. But we're overweight our investments on service. And when I talk about service, it's that entire ecosystem that supports the advisor and client.
Which helps with that consistency
which helps with the consistency. And our products make long-term promises, and we stand by a product, but what is that support system? What is that entire ecosystem that we bring? It's that consistent experience. And then if something goes wrong, because we're not perfect and we're constantly learning, is how we solve it, which is where empathy is really important.
You have a front row seat to how the industry has evolved. How has your experience shaped the way you think about change, and what lessons are most relevant to our advisors today?
I think we have such an opportunity with the insurance industry where we embrace and lean into this change. It is completely exciting. And one of the things you have to look at how other industries are adapting to the change. That's a big thing that we look at, is how are other industries adapting to technology? And I would say a lot of times the problems that other industries, other people are facing are very similar. It's just a different flavor. And so it is about learning and understanding, thinking how we solve some of these problems.
If the industry gets this right, aligning innovation, people, and purpose, what does the future of insurance in Canada look like for advisors and the clients they serve?
So I go back to that situation where you see crowdfunding, you see this GoFundMe, we see that start to disappear, right? We are prevalent, and first and foremost, we're addressing a need. Number two, Canadians understand what the need is. Right now, there is a gap in terms of financial acumen. And so that education is critical as well. And this is through the lifestyle, like through your life stages. So when you're entering the workforce, when you have liabilities, when you have debt obligations, as you're approaching retirement, as you're settling an estate, even right now, as Canadians retire, do they know how to establish their portfolio, to pass it on to their heirs efficiently, minimize taxes, settle an estate? When Canadians go through it, they realize it is a taxing moment. And again, are we there to help in that situation? So when we look forward, when we embrace technology, Canadians know they have a higher financial acumen. They understand what they need. And maybe two, not everyone ends up in the insurance industry working here by accident. Because when people come to the insurance industry, they don't leave because it is a fantastic space to work. But a lot of times it's by accident. Maybe it is a destination of choice as well.
I think that would be fantastic. I think as exactly what you said, there's a lot of people that fall into this backwards, or it's not their dream job, but once they get here, they realize it's a great industry. Kind of final question. If there was one mindset or action advisors should adopt to stay ahead of where the industry is going, what would it be?
That mindset would be exactly what the mindset we have as our top priority, and that's a learning and growth mindset. In this day and age, it is critical to always be curious, always have that curiosity, to especially in this environment as things are changing and the pace of change continues to be rapid.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today on Life Forward. This has been such an eye-opening conversation, exciting. There's only positives ahead. And I think you've illustrated that extremely well. And it's an exciting time to be in our business. I can't wait to where it's going to go. And I'm sure our advisors are excited for the future, especially with BMO Insurance. So thank you so much again. Looking forward to the future. And thank you very much for joining us on Life Forward today.